You won't survive as a slave in ancient Rome without knowing these three economic secrets. Imagine this. You're standing in the heart of the Roman Forum more than 2,000 years ago. The morning sun glints off marble columns, but your eyes lock onto a different scene. A child led onto the auction block, a wooden tag around her neck that reads, "Obedient, good for household work." The crowd shouts prices, their voices echoing across the square. As a modern observer, your heart aches. But as a time traveler from the 21st century, you see something else. Not just cruelty, but an entire economic system. Vast, powerful, and ultimately broken. In this journey, we're going to discover why slavery wasn't just immoral. It was Rome's greatest economic trap. How forced labor killed innovation and kept Rome from reaching its true potential. And most importantly, why freedom is the most valuable form of capital Rome never invested in. But before we dive in, let me ask you this. If you could step back into ancient Rome, what would you change first? Hold on to that thought, because what you're about to see will change the way you look at Rome forever. 1. The true cost of slavery. Rome's hidden economic trap. You're still in the slave market. The air smells of sweat, dust, and fear. A Roman landowner raises his hand, purchasing a young farm worker for 500 sestertii, the equivalent of nearly 2 years' wages for a soldier guarding the empire's borders. At first glance, it looks like a bargain. One-time payment, lifetime labor. But with modern eyes, you quickly see the illusion. Hidden costs everywhere. Every slave must be fed, housed, guarded. If they get sick, that's on you. If they run away, you lose your investment. And here's the kicker. Rebellion wasn't rare. Historian Appian writes that Spartacus's rebellion grew so fast, it nearly toppled Rome itself. Crushing it cost Rome the equivalent of billions in today's dollars. That's not profit. That's a bleeding wound in the economy. Productivity, miscalculation. And what about productivity? Studies today show that motivated workers can be 13% more productive than unmotivated ones. A slave forced into the fields does the bare minimum to survive. A free farmer, working for wages, and the dream of land ownership, will pour heart and soul into the soil. Imagine 25% more wheat harvested from the same land, simply because the worker cares about the outcome. If you were a Roman landowner, would you rather have 100 workers you must chain and guard, or 50 who work twice as hard because they want to feed their families? The economic trap. The Romans thought they were saving money, but in reality, they were buying liabilities. It's like a modern company relying entirely on unpaid interns. On paper, it looks cheap, but turnover, low quality, and lawsuits destroy you long term. Lesson: the cheapest option can be the most expensive. Rome's obsession with slavery was like filling a warehouse with defective machines, costly to maintain, dangerous to operate, and always on the edge of exploding. And money was only the first layer. The deeper cost, the future Rome never built. 2. Innovation. Denied how slavery stalled Rome's potential. You leave the market and step into a blacksmith's workshop. Sparks fly, hammers ring, 10 men hammering one iron bar. Your modern brain screams, one simple water wheel could replace all of this. Here's the twist. Romans already knew about water mills. Vitruvius, a Roman engineer, wrote about them in the 1st century BCE. They had prototypes for steam engines, gears, cranes, all the seeds of industrialization. Yet, they barely used them. Why? Slaves were cheaper than machines. When labor is free, innovation looks unnecessary. Why invest in technology when you can buy another pair of hands for 500 sestertii? Example from history. Columella, a Roman agricultural writer, once admitted that relying too heavily on slaves led to waste and mismanagement. He noticed that free tenant farmers, colony, produced better yields because they had personal stakes in success. Yet Rome stuck with the slave model anyway. The innovation trap. This is what economists today call an innovation trap. Abundance of cheap labor killed incentive to invent. Think about it. The Industrial Revolution in Europe came only when wages rose, forcing people to innovate. Rome had the brains, the tools, the resources, but slavery made innovation unnecessary. What would the world look like if Rome had embraced its water mills and steam prototypes? Could we have had smartphones in the 5th century instead of the 21st? Comparison to Athens, with fewer slaves and more reliance on free citizens, fostered philosophy, mathematics, and science. Rome, richer and stronger, chose short-term profit over long-term progress. Lesson: success can become your worst enemy. Rome's wealth blinded it, making it comfortable with the status quo. They could have sparked the Industrial Revolution 1,000 years early, but chose shackles instead. And this wasn't just about tools and machines. The greatest inventions Rome missed out on were inside the minds they never set free. 3. Freedom as capital. The missed investment of Rome. You step into Cicero's villa, quiet and filled with scrolls. Here lives Cicero, and with him, a man history nearly forgot. Tiro, his secretary, his assistant, and his slave. For years, Tiro copied Cicero's speeches word for word. Then Cicero made a radical choice. He freed him. The ripple of freedom. That single act unlocked genius. Tiro invented shorthand writing, capturing speeches at lightning speed. Because of him, thousands of documents survived, shaping Roman law and literature for centuries. Without Tiro, we might have lost much of Cicero's legacy, and with it, our understanding of Roman thought. The venture capital analogy. Cicero didn't just free a man. He made a now investment. Like a modern angel investor, he traded short-term control for long-term exponential return. One man's freedom yielded innovations that outlived the empire itself. Imagine the possibilities. Now imagine if Rome had a freedom fund. Merchants pooling money to free mathematicians, engineers, artists. How many inventions were lost because minds like Tiro's were chained? How many revolutions in science and trade were delayed by centuries? If you owned a slave who spoke 5 languages and knew trade routes across Africa, would you keep him scrubbing floors or let him build you a trading empire? Lesson: the highest return on investment isn't ownership, it's trust. Free people innovate. Free people create. Free people build the future. Rome never understood this, and it cost them dearly. But we don't have to repeat their mistake. Looking back, 3 truths stand out. 1. The hidden trap. Slavery looked cheap, but it was ruinously expensive. 2. Innovation denied. Cheap labor killed long-term creativity. 3. Freedom as capital. Rome ignored the greatest investment of all, human potential. These weren't just moral failures. They were strategic blunders that hollowed Rome from within. And here's the modern echo. We, too, have our blind spots. Entire communities cut off from education. Talents wasted because of inequality. People trapped in modern forms of servitude. If Rome could stumble because it failed to unleash the power of its people, so could we. The greatest asset in any age isn't land, gold, or armies. It's the creativity and freedom of human beings. So let me leave you with one question. Who are the Tiros of our world today? And what future might we unlock if we set them free? If you found this journey meaningful, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next time travel adventure. And share your thoughts in the comments. If you could step back into ancient Rome, what's the first thing you would change? Because history isn't just about the past. It's about the choices we make today and the future we choose to build together.